and welcome to episode 80 of Battlefield 4 News. Now I thought this was going to have to be quite a big episode because there's a couple of weeks of stuff I've missed. So I went through it all and discovered there really hasn't been that much news recently. So it looks like I picked the right time to go away. We have had patch 24 on the CTE servers. So this is the preparation towards the update to the live servers. And there are a few other small bits and pieces. We've got some news about changes to Hardline, but we'll have no evidence of those until the next beta comes out. So let's have a look at this CTE Patch 24. So one of the major things they've done in this patch is playing around with the frame history values again. They're trying to get hit registration better. Now, they're not sure what value is best for this frame history time. So for those of you that don't know, frame history time is a setting that lets DICE determine how long damage will still be taken and given by a player who's lagging out. So if the server is dropping frames and the client isn't responding, then the server says, well, after a second I'm not going to deal any damage to you or accept any of your damage because we're not in sync anymore. Originally this was set at 1.5 seconds. Then it was reduced to 1 second when they did the netcode improvements, because this frame history time has to work in conjunction with the netcode and with the netcode smoothing factor. So now they're just tweaking it to get it to feel right. If you set the frame history time too low, then even minor glitches in your internet connection mean you can't shoot anyone. If you set it too high, then you've got the problem of players not seeing other players where they should be, and you get shot round corners. And that's the first thing that's in the patch changes. Modify the frame history value on all the servers to see if that improves the hit registration. Next we have some level and object fixes. So they're going through levels and fixing those objects that aren't quite lined up properly, or the models don't quite match where bullet paths are being blocked. That's been done on the XP3 maps. XP3 meaning expansion 3, so that's Caspian Border, Gulf of Oman, Operation Firestorm and Operation Metro. It's also been done on Dawnbreaker, Siege of Shanghai, Flooded, which is the DICE name for Flood Zone, and Lockers, which is Operation Locker. DICE does occasionally use different names for maps because all of the maps had a development name and that's not necessarily the same as the release name. They fixed a wall in Lumphini Gardens and they fixed the invisibility glitch at the Flag A on Siege of Shanghai. And there's a few HUD tweaks and fixes. The scaling of crosshairs is now based on your vertical screen resolution rather than overall resolution, and that means it works better when you change aspect ratio. Once you've said you're ready at the start of a round, you can't fiddle around with a team setup, and when you've clicked ready once, that button then deactivates for a while so you can't spam it. They fixed the new deploy ready unready bar so it shows better on consoles, and the ready state is now fixed for squad deathmatch. So if you're not playing on the CTE servers, these HUD fixes won't mean anything to you because you won't have seen the broken versions. But what will mean something to you is weapon balancing. So let's have a look at these weapon changes. So they've adjusted the red dot reticles on medium and long range sights for the CSLR4 and the U100 and its subsidiaries. So the reason they're having to go through and do all these changes for individual guns is that the sights are all modelled on the guns. It's not just added to the model, it's a completely separate model. So the new changes to the visual recoil system all have to be remodelled individually for each gun and sight combination. They've increased the bullet velocity for all suppressed weapons. That includes weapons that you put a suppressor on and those with inbuilt suppressors. So now you won't have to lead as much, and the suppressor isn't as big a penalty as it used to be. It is still quite a considerable penalty, but not as much. The decrease in the rate of spread that they applied to the heavy machine guns mounted on vehicles has been tweaked slightly because it was so low that the HMGs never reached their maximum spread range. So now that's been reduced so that if you constantly fire the HMG, it will reach its maximum spread before it overheats. The 34 damage assault rifles and carbines, so that's the Scar H, the Bulldog and the Ace 52, which were reduced to 33 damage in the recent patches, have been given a small increase to the range at which their damage starts to drop off. So they're not following the normal model, their damage drop off is going to start further down range. The SR338 has finally been shown some love and they've given it a big reduction in its spread increase. If you ever saw my video on it, it just shot everywhere when you started going semi-automatic. They also want to increase its effective rate of fire, but that's going to be coming in the future. The Type 95 and the QBZ have now been given the correct modifiers to represent that they're bullpups. So you'll get the faster movement and faster turning when you're aiming down sights. It seems that when they did all the changes, they modelled all the guns as non-bullpups and are now going through and making the bullpups back to what they should be. And they've given the SVD12 a small buff, so it's now not exactly the same as the Scar HSV. What they've done is they've given it a small reduction in its increased spread per shot, so you can fire it slightly faster and still be accurate. So some interesting changes there. Guess I'll have to go out and check out the SR338 and see if it is actually usable now. And finally we have a few fixes for vehicles involving chase cameras on jets, which I don't really care about, and jets when they fly past trees and bushes which react to wind, well, they now will react to the wind created by the jet. And finally we have medium graphics level processing now uses bicubic sharp instead of linear scale resampling mode. Does it really? Wow. I never understand what any of these graphics settings mean. They've all got stupid names and it's never actually explained in a game what the different settings mean. It's like there are 12 different types of anti-aliasing and I have no idea which one does what. So if you've been using Google Chrome to run Battlelog, you may have noticed a few issues recently. First, if you're running Google Chrome on 32-bit operating system, then it didn't load plugins properly. Now, if you're running Google Chrome 64-bit and trying to play CTE, Battlelog doesn't work properly on that. So what they're suggesting is use Firefox or use the 32-bit version of Google Chrome. Weirdly, DICE do not support Internet Explorer with Battlelog, even though it works perfectly well on Internet Explorer. I've run Battlelog on Internet Explorer since Battlefield 3, never had an issue with it, but DICE don't support it. For some reason DICE, like a lot of gaming and media companies, really don't like Internet Explorer. I think it's a bit of the trendy, ooh, Firefox and Chrome are so shiny and new. Well, that's kind of old, and Google are really the evil empire these days, not Microsoft. What you can see on screen now is a comic. Well, it's kind of a comic. It's more of a video comic computer animation, and it's an alternative version of the single player storyline from Battlefield 4. This is available on YouTube. It's by a guy called Burdu, and if you click on the link below, that will take you to his page, or there'll be a link in the description that lets you go and view the full first issue. It's very well done, seems to use a 3D version of stills captured from the single player campaign itself. It's a bit early to tell what the storyline's going to be like, but visually it's really good, got some nice music to it, so it's well worth a watch. There's also been a lot of talk about Hardline, and we've got a bit of news about that. In the background is some footage that I've robbed from one of my previous Hardline videos. A lot of this information comes from Steve Papoutis, who's CEO of Hardline. So let's try and rattle through this quickly. So this is rescue mode. This is a 5v5 permadeath mode, and this is going to be one of their competitive game modes. apparently there is going to be at least one more. Hardline will have Premium, but they don't know what's going to be in it at the moment. Hardline will have Levolution, but it's going to be smaller, more level changing elements that change the flow of the gameplay. There will be another beta, but it's not coming soon. Map scale. They've said their maps are going to be mid-range Battlefield maps. So there will be close range maps and there will be mid-range maps, but there won't be the massive maps that you get in Battlefield 4. There will be a veteran program in Hardline, but again they don't know what's going to be in it yet. And they have made quite a few changes to the gameplay based on the first beta. So Survivalist, they've worked on a change where it will only work on explosives, not gunshots. So if you're shot and killed, you won't be able to revive with Survivalist, but if you run into an explosion, Survivalist will still work. They're making a drastic overhaul to the mechanic, which is essentially the engineer class from Battlefield 4, because it didn't feel very cops or robbers. So you won't be able to walk around with stingers and RPGs equipped anymore. Those are only going to be available as Battlefield pickups and in certain locations. So what they're anticipating is that will become another point that teams have to defend and hold. You also won't be able to reload them, so they're only going to have limited ammunition. They've also been talking about changing the vehicles so they're more realistic with the setting. And to go with that, they're going to make standard cars and bikes a bit tougher. So you won't be able to blow up a car and kill everyone in it with a single clip from an AK anymore. Now they currently have two contradictory ideas about weapons. Yes, they want to make the weapons feel more different for the two sides. So the cops will have different weapons from the robbers. But because you don't get a choice of which side you're going to be on, when you unlock a gun for the cops, you will also unlock a gun for the robbers. Originally when they were talking about this idea, it was going to be the same gun. And if both sides are using the same guns, then how do you get the different feel? But I imagine what they're going to do is have levels of guns. So if you unlock the level 3 assault rifle, say for the robbers, then you get the level 3 cop assault rifle unlocked at the same time, because you don't really have a choice as to which side you play at any one time. You jump in a game and your side is randomly picked for you. So it seems like they are taking note of the feedback from the beta, which is good, and they've removed some of the things that people said were OP or spoilt the mood of the game, and they're trying to focus it on feeling like a cops and robbers game rather than a skinned Battlefield 4. And really that's all the news there's been. There's been a lot of rumours flying around. There's still talk about there being another DLC after Final Stand, but DICE have said you can't just copy maps and weapons from Battlefield 3 into Battlefield 4. They all have to be completely created from scratch. I think maybe we could see some new weapons and some new assignments. You could put 5 or 6 weapons together into a DLC, give it away free, add some assignments and keep people happy that way. But I suspect we'll see Final Stand coming out a few weeks later than maybe it would have been, and then that will flow into the Hardline beta. But we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, that's it for this episode of Battlefield 4 News. Thanks for watching.